folks. Welcome to the Witty Vitor Podcast. As you know, Gen Z hasn't always been fairly represented. From the so-called TikTok generation to OnlyFans money factory workers, we all heard some nasty comments about those born in the last couple of decades. But I would like to ask everyone in this show and everyone watching this show, how fair is that? Some say Gen Z might actually turn out to be surprisingly conservative and, in certain cases, even Zionist. Can we say Gen Z for Zionism? Stay tuned to meet Lorenzo, who is here in the middle, who might just fit to that unexpected prototype. So tonight, we are exploring the idea that Gen Z may be more Zionist than many realize, and the beauties and challenges of taking a stand as a young person among your peers and within academia. Lorenzo will be our Gen Z voice, and I'm also joined by my co-host Marco Alexander, who is based in Jerusalem. He is just slight above the Gen Z threshold, but he's still very much young at heart. Marco, my good friend, how are you?
That's slander. That's slander. You're starting badly. I'm okay. Good to see you all.
Let's chat with Lorenzo, and not just the two of us, not just myself and Marco. We want you to be part of the conversation, so please join the chat box, ask your questions, share your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We have recently passed our first 1,000 subscribers, but we are not the kind of people who will stop just now. We want to continue growing. And while you are at it, make sure to reply to our live poll. And the question is, what shapes Gen Z's opinion on Israel the most? A, TikTok and social media. B, mainstream news. And C, family and education. Okay, we were monitoring your input throughout the session, so stay around. Lorenzo, you are very welcome back to the show, because I think it's your third or fourth time. I'm losing count at this point.
Exactly, yeah. First of all, thanks for hosting me. It's a very special time tonight. And by the way, let me congratulate you for this very important milestone. Reaching 1,000 followers is really extremely important, and you must rejoice about it. First of all, to introduce our discussion, I must confess, I always felt almost an ancestral and very strong and insistent bond with the land of Israel and its wonderful people. And this is a connection that is very hard to express at words. Just who feels it can understand what I'm currently describing. Whenever my Jewish brothers and sisters suffer, I suffer with them and feel deep sadness and sorrow. On the other hand, when the Jewish people rejoice, for example, when the first hostages were released, I also feel a very deep and instinctive sense of happiness, of joy, of enthusiasm. I can feel their euphoria, and I felt euphoric as well. I believe that the history of the West, to which I'm very connected due to its millennial values, relies on three cornerstones, three pillars, which are respectively Greek philosophy, Roman law, and the Judeo-Christian spirituality. For this very reason, I reckon that supporting Israel in this historical period is a moral duty, because the forces of evil are seeking to erode the foundation of our own civilization and the basis upon which we are built, Western society as a whole. So I think that as a Christian born, supporting Israel is paramountly important. Many people tell me, have you ever visited Israel? Have you ever been there? Have you experienced the reality of the Jewish state? And the answer is surprisingly no. I've never had the chance to visit Israel. I've never been neither to Jerusalem nor to Tel Aviv, even though many of my Israeli friends urge me to reach them and greet them. But I promised them I will visit Israel once I finish my studies and get my degree next year. So it's a promise. I've always been very keen on knowing more about Jewish history and Jewish culture as well. And I must admit that my passion for Judaism erupted even more after the massacre of October 7. And this was the milestone that almost obliged me to know further the history of the Jewish people, their tragedies, the great miracles that bond together the Jewish people. And I also decided to have a stricter bond, to build close relationship with the members of the Jewish community of my own city, Rome. I have been to the Jewish ghetto several times. I had a chance to take part in many events regarding the history of the Jewish community of Rome, like the 1943 roundup in the streets of our capital, or racial persecution after the enactment of Mussolini's fascist segregation laws. And I think the most fundamental truth I've come across throughout the last 2 years is the intergenerational force and the spirit of determination and resilience that unites together the Jewish people, regardless of their political belief, of personal experience, opinions, or even ethnic backgrounds. Let us remember that the Jewish people are ethnically and genetically very diverse. There are Mizrahi Jews, which were forced to flee to other Middle Eastern countries like Iran, Iraq. I will also go back to this point later. There are Sephardic Jews. Maybe you, Vitor, know quite well about Sephardic Jews, because the Jews which established themselves in the Iberian Peninsula, in Spain and Portugal, and were even forced to leave after 1492, when Isabel of Castilla and Ferdinand of Aragon passed that horrible laws which expelled the Jews from the Iberian Peninsula. There are even Ashkenazi Jews. The Italian community, as Marco probably knows, comes generally from the Ashkenazi ethnical background. They are very based on Central and Eastern Europe as well. So I think that the greatest point of strength of the Jewish people is the unity of Jewry, regardless of differences. It's almost as if the Jews are the perfect depiction of the Latin motto in pluribus unum. They are diverse, very heterogeneous, and they also fight each other for political differences, for instance, but they share that incredible instinctive strength that's allowed the Jews to survive until today and to face hatred, bigotry, anti-Semitism, discrimination, and so on. I don't know if you want to know something more about my university experience after this general introduction.
Yeah, we'll get into it in a second. First, I would like to focus on yourself. So you were never in Israel, but that will be sorted in a short period of time. So everyone will be happy to see you there the next year or two. So, for some people, visiting Israel is life-changing, or travel as such can be like a radical shift in people's lives. And Israel is very known for that, because Israel is one of those places that once you are there, you cannot be indifferent. So what was the trigger in your case? Was it something more, or was it someone you met? Was it some experience? What was it?
It's something you feel inside your soul, and nobody forced me to believe in my pro-Israel views. Nobody introduced me forcibly. So I enjoyed being in company with Jewish people, men, women, old and young people, and share with them their experience, talk together, have interesting discussion about what's going on in Israel. I also had the chance when I attended high school to speak to a Holocaust survivor, which is based in Rome. She's currently 92, and Edith Brooke. She's a Jew of Hungarian origins, and talked to the students about her horrific experience in Auschwitz concentration camp. I had the chance to ask her one very essential basic question. Edith Brooke, do you believe that is it possible to eradicate once for all anti-Semitism? Her reply was straightforward. No, I think that hatred will never stop. Anti-Jewish sentiment is spreading very powerfully nowadays. And I think that Jews will never, ever have the opportunity to live in peace without being harassed by radical Muslims, Nazi-skin communists, and so on. So, to answer precisely your question, my love for Israel was really spontaneous, and it started on my own. As far as my university experience was concerned, I would like to say something that sounds very obvious to all of you and to the people who are following us on YouTube. Italian university, like American campuses, European university as well, are definitely not the best place which you can engage in discussion, having fruitful conversation, or touch on sensitive issues like the war in Gaza, for example. Because universities have no real grasp of free speech, pluralism, respect for other opinions, and so on. I'm currently attending my last year in the Faculty of Political Science of Roma Tre University, and I can assure you it is a very safe and relatively calm public university in Italy, which isn't always taken for granted. Even though the atmosphere there had become really tense and almost darker after some vapid small groups of pressure led by communists are calling for the resignment of teachers, of the principal, of many people, and are also starting to assume intimidating behavior towards colleagues. The greatest luck I met on my course was to meet up a group of friends which are really amazing. I want to greet them, Sofia, Pier Francesco, many others. They're really amazing people, and I can be truly myself when I'm standing with them. I can say whatever I want without fear of retaliation. However, what scares me the most is potentially being labeled as an extremist, a far-right man by, or a persona non grata, for example, due to my pro-Israel views, due to my Zionist activism, my pro-Israel advocacy. But I have to get ready for anything that comes on my way. Just to give an example that doesn't involve directly Israel, but is something noteworthy in my opinion. Some weeks ago, I met a girl which was focusing on post-colonial studies concerning South Africa after the abandonment of apartheid politics. I remarked her that the persecution of Boers, the Dutch origin minority in South Africa, was really horrifying. Her attitude changed almost instantaneously. She looked at me as if I uttered an insult and replied by saying, "There is no persecution under Ramaphosa government. The Boers are just messing up. There is nothing against them." After that quote, I understood she was clearly left-leaning. if I brought up a sensitive topic like Israel or the war in Gaza, I can just imagine how a reaction would have been. Last but not least, there is a very funny anecdote I'd like to tell you.
Yeah. Can I just cut you off here, because I want to mention one thing that was part of the motto of this podcast, which was how much Gen Z is leaning towards Israel. And here's an example yourself. And you mentioned that there are people with whom you can talk openly about it. So perhaps that can give hope for others that they find themselves very much isolated. They are afraid to speak. So I think I've been given the impression that we are more than we are told. So we should take that message and try to be more straightforward with our ideas, because you can see Lorenzo probably thinks like some of people that are watching us tonight is not by himself. He can talk to a bunch of people in Italy. So guys, just take the initiative, because that's something positive to mention. I just want to pass to Marco, but Marco didn't raise his voice, and Marco's voice is crucial.
Yeah, well, yeah, you say very interesting things. Of course, I do follow things quite a lot of what's going on in Italy, and I've noted of course, one couldn't help but noticing the violence in the universities and the attempts to shut down debate and to intimidate professors who didn't hold certain views. How widespread is that? Because it seems to me that these people are setting the agenda. They may not be the majority, but they are defining what I would call an anti-Semitic reality, even though perhaps the majority of Italians are not anti-Semitic. But certainly the anti-Semitic element, and I call them the Palestinist element, are defining reality. We don't hear other people taking a stand. They're few and far between.
Yeah, I agree with you. University are the bulwark of anti-Semitic indoctrination and what you very powerfully describe as Palestinianism. So that kind of post-Marxist, third worldist conception of the world that pervades places of culture like universities, academias, mainstream media as well. And the anecdote I wanted to share with you is concerning this precise element, because a university collective called Cambiare Rotta, which is linked to Stalinism and Leninism, so they're quite anachronistic in their views, recently hoisted a gigantic Palestinian flag on the fourth floor of our building, our university.
Yeah.
And from the square on the main entrance, a chorus rose up with the slogans "Fuck Trump," "Fuck Netanyahu," "Fuck Meloni," "Free Palestine from the river to the sea." And although they were a small group, I felt it was quite an intimidating act. But suddenly, my Jewish friend Joshua went upstairs, dragged down that gigantic flag, with many people that were surprised and wouldn't expect such an act of courage. You should also remember that my university, Roma III University, has a significant presence of Jewish students among the student body. So that provocation almost made them uncomfortable there. So my Jewish friend did that courageous thing, and the flag fell down to the ground. Ironically, did you know what the communists told him? You are a Nazi thug. So we are seeing a reversal of truth under the paradigm of Palestinianism. So a Jewish student like Joshua that bravely stands up against hatred is labeled as a far-right extremist. And conversely, people who are intimidating shutting down debate and misbehaving towards their colleagues are considered freedom fighters. And that shows how brainwashed and dangerously ill communists are. There are many people who support what that university collective, Cambiare Rotta, has done. But I also think, responding to what Vitor told some minutes ago, that there is a silent majority that is quietly but constantly reacting against violence and coercion. My university can be an example where there is a tiny minority shouting, crying hateful slogans, but the vast majority of students who doesn't show up are in favor of the recognition of the importance of our Jewish community and relentlessly support Israel, Eretz Israel, and the right of Israel to exist. So we have to face it and to get united in order to face hatred.
Yeah, you that's very interesting because you anticipate what I wanted to say. Perhaps it is time for people like you, of course, bright people like you and your associates, perhaps to create something, some type of organization, some tangible facts on the ground, and not to leave the public spaces to these people, because this is what they want. They want to hijack, very much like the Islamists. You will have noticed the ubiquitous Palestinist flag at all these demonstrations, and the way people gather around rally around this flag all over Europe. When you see an Islamist demonstration, which is nothing, which may not have anything to do with Israel ostensibly, but you see this flag everywhere. This is the rallying cry. For example, very often you'll see them go and pray in front of a church.
Yeah.
You have these mass gatherings in front of a church. So perhaps it's time for people to take a stand and not just think good thoughts, but translate the thoughts into action, and to make their presence felt.
Yeah, if folks want to know more about Italy, myself and Marco, we held a podcast. When was that? It was a month ago, as I see here in our records. We spoke to Giovanni Giacaloni and Miriam Ferretti, who are also two experts in Italy. We call it Italy in Flames, pro-Palestinian protests shake the nation. I'm going to put the link here in the comments that people they want to check it perhaps this weekend or whenever they have a couple of hours, so they can go through it. There's a lot of interesting insights, so make sure to watch it over the next few days, because it's still accurate. I think things didn't really cool down in Italy, so there's a lot to learn from that discussion. So if you want to be aware of what we do here, not only today with Lorenzo, but in other conversation types or models, make sure to subscribe, because there's more to come. Lorenzo, I would like to now, I mentioned the positive things, that you have people to talk to, but you also face a lot of hostility. So I would like to know, what is the field where you let's say you have the hardest? Is it online? Is it when you talk face to face to people? Is it on university? Where do we feel that we are having a hell of a time?
Well, I haven't faced hatred directly, and I must confess to have been very lucky, because many friends of mine have been, at the center of bullying episodes or intimidation on social medias. So from that perspective, I hadn't experienced anything like that, and I'm very grateful, but I fear that something sinister could happen in the future. I must get prepared for any events like that. I believe that the two different dimensions we are analyzing, so social medias from one side and university campuses, on the other, present different hostilities and different challenges to face up. Because on social media, there is the risk of being targeted by foreign bots like the one settled in Qatar, Turkey, Iran, etc. Or you may face the risk of being temporarily or permanently banned due to your own positions. That happens especially in the platform like Instagram or Facebook, owned by Meta, who are quite prone to politically correctness. On the contrary, X is a place that guarantees free speech on a certain degree, but I noticed that recently its algorithm has become a bit more sluggish and problematic. On the other end, the risk of campuses and universities is that you can face discrimination, you may have a slowdown in your academic career due to the societal stigma about being a pro-Israel student. You can eventually decide to study elsewhere or even dropping out. I fear that many center-right students who are close to my position may have the risk of being dropped out from university. That's very dangerous, and you cannot exclude that. As I said before, I didn't experiment anything like that, but you must be very careful because university is like a jungle, and you can move forward by getting into the survival of the fittest mode. You should cleverly self-censor yourself in the right moment, know when you can speak up and when you should be silent, not to face discrimination or not to be shut down. So university is a playfield where you can grow up, mature yourself, even try to be a better version of yourself. And going back to social media, I think that thanks to mainstream platforms, young people in favor of Israel have achieved a level of recognition and visibility that would have been unimaginable some years ago. There are groups of people who raise awareness about the war in Gaza, about the humanitarian crisis in kibbutzim, just to make an example. People on public chats who share the same goals, successful influencers, musicians, artists who stand with Israel and contribute to raising awareness. Just let me give a few honorable examples. There is a brilliant, fantastic guy of Egyptian origins called Coptic Zionist, who talks about growing up in a quite anti-Semitic environment full of prejudice against Jews, but rapidly changed his mind by studying the contradiction into the Quran and getting to know close Jewish community in his city. Another brilliant influencer is Yedel Kadosh, who debunks fake news with a very provocative, sharp, yet enlightening language. My friend Liam Betzvi is trying to create an unprecedented alliance between European students, young Israelis, and even Koreans who are standing with Israel to combat anti-Semitism and defend oppressed minority in the Middle East, like the Druze minority or the Alawites in Syria. The Iraqi Jew Tal Oran was once a globally renowned vlogger, travel vlogger, but has shifted towards pro-Israel advocacy, creating a series of very funny interviews entitled "Are You a White Colonizer?" David Disegni, just to finish this description of some of the most brilliant influencers are there. David Disegni is my friend, is the leader of the Jewish Chronicle of the Roman community. is the director of a magazine and has produced marvelous documentaries about the 1982 attacks on Rome synagogue, where the 2-year-old Stefano Gaitache died in a tragic circumstance, like a terrorist attack. There are many brilliant and intelligent influencers out there. If pro-Israel young people get united, nothing can stop us.
I want to draw people's attention. There's a poll going on, okay, where we ask what is Gen Z opinion being shaped the most? Is it about TikTok and social media, mainstream news, or family education? At the moment, there's an overwhelming inclination toward social media, but I want to listen to others. I know there are lots of people watching us, so add your input, and at the same time, send a question to Lorenzo. He's more than happy to answer. Marco?
I wanted to touch upon the demonstrations organized by teachers in primary schools, because I found this extremely disturbing. I'm aware of what's going on because for many years I worked as an interpreter at Yad Vashem, which hosted groups of Italian teachers learning about the Holocaust. But having read many of their comments, it appears that they have returned back to Italy more anti-Semitic than when they arrived in Israel. So I wanted to explore this with you about young children being co-opted into demonstrations. What can you tell us about that?
School indoctrination starts very early, and it's a dangerous threat because it annihilates critical thinking skills from elementary schools onwards. I also had the disturbing feeling of being part of a wider indoctrination project when, during one of the Remembrance Days we organized at our school, the left-wing teachers invited communist intellectuals, or
yes.
as I could define them, pseudo-intellectuals, people who try to present themselves as bright people, but aren't anything like that. And one person is still sticking on my mind. I'm talking about a former politician from the left-wing mayor of Rome, Veltroni. You probably have heard of him.
Yes, I have indeed. Yes.
Portelli, Alessandro Portelli, who is clearly an anti-Semite, a far-left activist, a person who doesn't respect students' opinion. And he stated, Jews were victims of a plan of mass destruction back in the 30s and in the 40s, but nowadays the Jewish Zionist entities is trying to perpetrate the same crimes against the oppressed Palestinians. What can a student learn from that disgusting comments about the Jewish state?
Indeed.
So what worries me even worse is what you were just saying. So there are terrible lessons and demonstration back in elementary school or even in kindergarten.
Yes.
The most subtle strategy to ruin our youth is to make them feel protected into a comprehensive environment where there are bright colors like Palestinian flags, catchy tunes, choruses, and a sort of artistic and fake representation of a humanitarian cause, which make you feel noble. Children have not the ability to detect lies from the truth.
Of course, of course.
So they are gonna become brainwashed adults in the
Mm.
future.
Yeah, yeah.
So I had the chance to see what happens in high school, but since the war in Gaza started, I noticed how the same plans and the same strategies have been pursued in elementary school and even in kindergartens.
Indeed,
You know,
indeed. But
this is a phenomenon, yeah, that is
yeah,
becoming more and
it's
more
it's very serious.
almost.
I would consider it a form of child abuse. I think it should be considered child abuse. And
Yes,
do the authorities not do anything about this, because it's clearly something that is uh, abusing and exploiting a very fragile mental state and a very malleable mental state of children.
yes.
This I find to be quite shocking. Also, that the government doesn't do anything about it. There is something else I did want to mention. Also in the secondary schools, about the textbooks. Can you tell us a little bit about the history textbooks? Because I think you can shed some light on that. What do they teach about the Middle Eastern conflict? Can you tell us something about that?
Yeah, there is a negative depiction of Israel
Mm,
as a colonizing entity, as an
yeah.
illegitimate state, which was established back in 1948
Mm,
due to European people
mm,
exploiting Palestinians. But
mm,
there isn't a clear definition of who Palestinians were.
mm.
They didn't exist. They are not existing nowadays.
Indeed, indeed,
Yeah,
indeed.
so it's quite an impossible task to do.
Mm,
I
mm,
found an interesting analogy between what school books, textbook write about Israeli-Palestinian conflict and what they write about Russian history,
mm,
especially in geography textbooks.
mm,
They include a geographic chart of Belarus, Moldova,
mm,
Ukraine, and Russia, calling it the Russian region. So
mm,
there is the bid to, to make Ukrainian history irrelevant,
mm,
deny its sovereignty as a state,
mm,
and include it into the Russian imperialist asset. I
mm,
can feel the same about Middle Eastern history
mm,
because textbooks depicts Israel as an enemy, as a poisonous ally of the United States in the Middle East,
mm,
fuels propaganda, controls the media, is established in the bank sector. So
mm,
old anti-Semitic prejudice are fueled in textbooks. That kind of simplistic framing of
mm,
such a complex historical background is portraying Israel as an oppressor,
mm,
not as the only democracy in the Middle East where there is freedom of speech, religious tolerance, and equality under the law.
mm. So I mean, it's running through the Italian educational system from a very young age, right through to the secondary
Yes.
school and into university, of course. Sorry, Vito.
Yeah, I was just thinking here, like these textbooks that are surely anti-Israel, it seems to me also anti-Ukraine, they could have been written by the new president of Ireland, Catherine Connolly, who
Mm,
is
Oh my God.
openly anti the Jewish state, openly anti-Ukraine or the Ukraine, as she mentioned. Maybe it's a country that she is aware of, and we are not, called the
mm,
Ukraine. I will invite people to ChatGPT that country called the Ukraine, or maybe ask directly the new president of Ireland. She's also anti-NATO, anti-capitalism, anti all the things that are prospering, which it's, in other words,
The
what the
worst president
communist
on earth.
stands for.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
Worst.
I think I think after Kim Jong Un, she is somewhere there, maybe in a very very tough competition for the podium, for the number one place on the podium. Lorenzo, I admire the way you pursue, your visions of the road, how you are open about it. But I know that we all face some ethical challenges, because there is always the odd day when you think that perhaps I should just be one more. When that day arrives, because we all were there, none of us is Superman in this show. What brings you back to the real action? Like, what motivates you when you feel that there is no reason to carry on with this battle?
On the contrary, I'm increasingly convinced that about the value of what I do on a daily basis. Every time I feel much more motivated to go further, to explore deeper Jewish history, to meet new friends. So I never felt demotivated about my work or my collaboration as a freelance journalist for L'Opinione della Libertà, my newspaper. I feel quite determined to pursue my goals. And I think that depends on my philosophical framework. I have quite an individualistic mentality in the positive sense of the term. So I don't care about other people's opinion of what I'm doing. I respectfully disagree with them, but my plans are much more important than other people backlash. That's for sure. Let me say something important about a term which is misunderstood and mislabeled in Italy, which is hasbara. Hasbara means understanding the uniqueness of the Jewish soul, and as Zionist means to make the Jewish ancestral land your homeland. So Hasbara also means to make known the reality on Israel and its people to those who ignore about it. Many people associate Hasbara to an unscrupulous exercise of manipulation or something detrimental to one's soul. The people will denigrate Israel, make you believe that Hasbara is a form thanks to which Israel spreads its powerful influence worldwide. But I rather think that Hasbara is an essential requirement that includes three stages. The first one is learning from the past, learning its lessons. The second stage is understanding the present and being able to interpret it. The last one is building up the future. Pro-Israel activists and people who focus on pro-Israel advocacy may find a pitfall during their activity to respond in a furious manner to provocation. I believe they should avoid it. They should avoid reacting with the same violence of the communists' agitprop. They should keep steadfast and keep calm even in stressful situations or during emergencies. It's not an easy task to do, but it's necessary if they want to be successful. They also need to make people understand that Israel wants to coexist peacefully with other countries in the Middle East, with Jordan, with Saudi Arabia, with the Arab Emirates, and so on, rather than destabilizing neighboring countries. They should be determined to face up the opposition from those who deny Israel's right to exist. So I suggest to my friends who are really keen on Israel, try to express yourself in a polite, convincing manner. Try to respect your interlocutor. Never fall into the error of reacting in the angriest way, because they will label you as an extremist, so you're playing your enemy's game, basically. So going back to your question, I'm really convinced of the value of what I'm doing, and people don't discourage me at all.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I want to use it to advertise something here. You mentioned the value of dialogue. How is it important to have an open and real conversation? Like we all know how vital it is as a vehicle of learning. So please, people, like have a sit down and have like a real conversation with others, because sometimes it's all you need is just to reach out to someone and share new information, and others will see other angles that without the approach, without that interaction, they'll never be told. And on that regard, myself and Marco will participate on the Rabbi Sack Global Learning Day, which is about the topic Torah as conversation. So we will highlight how much dialogue matters for civilization and culture. So that will happen on the 11th of November. So it's 2 weeks time. So guys, if you don't want to miss this show, make sure to press the subscribe button, because we will provide a lot of insights when it comes to classical philosophy and also Rabbi Sack teachings. So that's just an encouragement for people. Also make sure to ask your questions, because we won't be here for much longer due to agenda. We will stay another 15 or 20 minutes. So use the chat box, ask questions, make comments. Let's make sure that this session is interactive. And if you haven't replied to the poll is still open. So I will close it in the next 10 minutes, and then we can have a chat about it. Marco?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the position of the new Pope now. What can you tell us? Because the previous Pope Francis, said some pretty unpleasant things about Israel. Do you notice a change in the position of the new Pope?
I think that Pope Leo is a moderate guide to the church, is trying to build a dialogue with Jewish communities in Rome. I can't tell you because my friends participated in several encounters with some clergymen in the Vatican. However, I think that Catholicism is compromised with some prejudice, which lay back to the historic heritage of the Catholic Church, anti-Jewish discrimination. So I also consider Pope Leo a quite good authority, but at the same time not vocal. He's speaking against the return of the remains of the hostages, just to make an example, or the horrible massacre of the October 7th. He made some references clear. He has a moral compass about what's going on, but his views often coincide with what another member of the church I don't like at all, Pizzaballa, says. Pizzaballa is complicit in dialogue with terrorists. I know it's a very strong accusation, but I feel it. How is it possible that the only parish in the Gaza Strip doesn't know anything about the situation of the hostages? Ignore what happens on the tunnel underneath Gaza. So I think that our church is knowing several internal contradictions. We have some wings of the church, like the moderate ones, guided by Pope Leo, who are leaning a little bit towards Israel, are trying to repair things after the hideous pontificate of Pope Francis, who was an Islamist and a communist and a Peronist, which is even worse. But however, our church is embroidered with anti-Semitism. Many people try to hide it in a clever manner, but prejudice always go back on the surface. So I'm not quite hopeful. I can appreciate some signals, but the church is not friend of Israel for sure.
No, that I did understand, but I was just wondering whether this Pope was a little more diplomatic, let's put it that way, because Pope Francis seemed to put his foot into it a little more than might have been necessary. So perhaps Pope Leo's a little more cautious. We can say that, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of has a conciliatory approach. It tries to recall the idea of synodus, of dialogue, of interfaith relationship. So it's definitely an improving from Pope Francis' era, but I don't regard Pope Leo XIV as the hero of John Paul II. There's nothing comparable to his commitment to peace and freedom in Western civilization. Pope Leo is quite, a second-range figure in our church. We are going to remember it as a distinguished pope, but nothing remarkable about his heritage.
Yeah, and these are different times as well. I think Pope Francis was a Twitter pope. Was a pope of social media. There is also that. I want to ask you, like, in terms of, I still want to keep on the spot. Hope you won't get angry with it. But what are you more afraid of when you communicate your ideas? Because some people are more concerned about being misunderstood. Others would hate the idea of being labeled. But I think what we all fear is being ignored. What is your main preoccupation?
Until a certain degree, because being ignored doesn't scare me very much, because fame isn't something that grows instantaneously. It takes time. It takes a great degree of attention on a daily basis. Being misunderstood may be fleeting, since many people can reason properly, so they can understand a different side of your perspective and maybe misrepresent what you are saying. I believe instead that being labeled will centrally make you the ideal target for your adversaries and prevent others from getting to know who you are, what you stand for, and what you believe in. So, that kind of approach still horrifies me. So I'm quite afraid of being labeled, of being mislabeled, and being called a provocateur, an ignorant, or even a far-right extremist. Because many people refer to me as a ultra-capitalist, far-right influencer, which sounds as a contradiction in terms for me, but
But when it's coming from some people, I would argue that can be a compliment. No?
A compliment with who?
A compliment, like if it's coming from idiots, maybe they are just giving you a compliment because they don't know what they are referring to.
I understood compromise. So a compliment.
No, never compromise with them. No.
No, definitely no.
That's out of the question. Yes.
Yeah, it can be interpreted as a reverse compliment to me. Yeah.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah, and unreliable people are the proof you're doing right. And compromising with them won't lead you anywhere. So I suggest to my friends, find space where you can welcome you. You can be defended if necessary against external threats. Learn to argue your points. Address an audience that understands you. Help your Jewish friends, being supportive in times of difficulty like the one we are living in. And never let haters diminish your potential. Trust the process and being unapologetically yourself. That's the message I want to spread and I want to tell my friends.
I hope people will take in. We have a good number of viewers watching us tonight, and they all lean towards the idea that TikTok and social media are shaping Gen Z's opinion on Israel way more than mainstream news and family and education. Now, I would make the case that that's not really great news for the Jewish state, especially taking into consideration the amount of hate and misinformation that is spread in social media. How popular is TikTok in Italy, Lorenzo?
The situation is really awful in Italy. I'd like the news channel and mainstream media stop treating casualty figures from the so-called health minister of Palestine as a reliable source. We've heard for months on 10,000 people have deceased this week due to Israel retaliation against innocent Palestinians. That's pure nonsense. This is just lie that is trying to hide the true responsibility behind the conflict. I hope universities rediscover their vocation as places of truth, as the bulwarks of culture, rather than being places where coercion, violence, panic, and censorship reign. I would even appreciate that TV shows host more precise and reliable guests instead of hate mongers who doesn't know anything about Palestine and even threatens the other hosts who instead have a different opinion. We have many self-described analysts, several commentators who are not able to understand the situation and are labeling other colleagues as Zionist enemies. So I think the situation in Italy isn't much better than the rest of Europe. Many people ignore the truth. They are brainwashed by mainstream media. And the vast majority of these sources of information misrepresent the dynamics of power in the Middle East. When Israel intervenes to fight terrorism abroad, like in the recent attack in Qatar, where some terrorists died, media described it as a dangerous escalation that would bring war worldwide. That is not true at all. Israel is defending the core values of our civilization. Israel is fighting relentlessly against hatred and terrorism. Israel is also trying to build closer relationship with other reasonable Arab partners, and Trump's Abraham Accords are building a path in that direction. So I really would hope that Italy leads to a brighter future, but if we as Gen Z activists, a young pro-Israel people, if we don't react, the situation won't change in the next year. So, I try to be optimistic about the future. We are living in dark times. Hope that as many people as possible join our mission to make Israel great again. Israel is great, but it must be greater in the future, and it must be known as a beacon of freedom, opportunity in the entire world. Israel is really a miraculous country. And whenever I read fake news about Israel, I also suffer. So I really hope that my contribution tonight will bring a bit of light in a period which is dominated by gloomy, sinister episodes like violent attacks. Thank you for hosting me, by the way.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure.
Yeah, So it's always good to have you here, whether it's about Israel, Italy, social media. I think you can share a lot of insights in different spheres, and we can all benefit from hearing you. So thank you from my end, the viewers.
Before leaving, is there any question from the group, from the chat?
No, not that I can see. People were relatively silent. I hope they were not intimidated by your knowledge, but they were relatively silent tonight. But if there is, I let you know. Sometimes people drop questions the day after or after a couple of days, and I think you are always happy to answer, even if it is offline. So, guys, don't hesitate. If you don't want to ask now, chat box remains open, and Lorenzo can pick it. In the next couple of days. Not a problem. Not a problem. This is an open dialogue.
Yeah, I can say if our audience is intimidated, satisfied, or disappointed by my speech.
They can let us know. Chat box is still open. So here's a new poll. Are you disappointed? Are you intimidated? Or what was the other one? Sorry, I lost track.
Right down in the comments. Yeah.
Yes. So or C for other. So you can let us know on the comments, and we will make a conclusion out of it. Let's make sure to subscribe, guys, because myself and Marco are here also fulfilling a mission, which isn't easy. It's to be here every week trying to provide you with insights on a topic that is always misrepresented in mainstream media and in other parts of the communication environment. So we don't want that to affect you. We want to bring you real sources and from people who are on the ground, like Lorenzo, who doesn't hesitate to speak up for things he believes, despite the backlash. That's what we need. People who don't bend when they are under pressure. So thank you for that ethos, Lorenzo. I think it's a great example for others. And if you are still hesitating about being open about your support for Israel and by extension for the West, I truly believe that tonight you received an encouragement from this blood from Lorenzo. Hope you make the most of it and perhaps have that chat, because I think we are more than we are being taught. If you enjoy what we did here, and I always ask you, just make sure to press that like button below, because that's a way to tell the algorithm that we provide value in this podcast. And you can also share it. Because we did it live, but this stays here for the future. Let's put it like that. With that, I wish everyone a good evening. We'll be back next Wednesday.
Can I quote Can I quote something very powerful from my idol, Margaret Thatcher? She said, we will stand up on our principles, or we won't stand up at all. This can be the conclusion.
That's a great quote. Yeah, a great quote. I know you are a Margaret Thatcher expert, same as Ronald Reagan. Though I can imagine that somewhere in your bedroom there are a couple of posters of them, and I think they really fit your worldview. Guys, if you are in Ireland, let me just advertise that before I forget and I'm beheaded on the weekend. If you are in Ireland, you happen to be in Ireland next week, Tuesday, 4th of November, myself and two other writers are giving a workshop. This will be the first live ever, okay? Directly from the podcast format. Okay, so we will be in Greystone's library. It will be myself, Jeroen van Domele, and Maria Stravopoulou. We call ourselves the Witty Vitor Writers, okay? And we run writing workshops in this YouTube channel, but for the first time we will do it live. So if you happen to be in the Emerald next week, 4th of November, half 6, we'll be there discussing writing topics, and we're also reading some of our stuff. I will bring copies of my book, Harry Kelnov's Guest. So if you're interested in purchasing a copy and getting a copy signed by me, I'm more than happy to make it happen on Tuesday, half 6 in Greystone's library And there is a lot of interesting stuff taking place in this YouTube channel in November, but I will unveil more in the next couple of sessions. So here are the reasons for you to subscribe, and I hope I see you every single of you very, very soon. Have a good night, guys, and
I'm
talk soon. Take care.
Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom, shalom.